A Raisin in the Sun, Act 1, Scene 1. Before we begin discussing A Raisin in the Sun, it would be helpful if you went back and looked over Harlem or A Dream Deferred, the poem that we read in class. This poem is what inspired A Raisin in the Sun. We are going to be referring back to it several times. It can be found in the beginning of the text A Raisin in the Sun. It would be also helpful if you reminded yourself of the two rules of ELA. The first rule is that everything is figurative until proven otherwise. The example that I gave in class was that of a sunrise. So if you're reading a poem or a piece of literature and the sun is rising, what might that signify outside of a literal sunrise? And the most obvious answer would be the beginning of something. It could be the beginning of a person's life. It could be the beginning of a phase of a person's life, but chances are it's the beginning of something. The second rule of ELA is that every text connects with other texts. This becomes easier the more you read. Already we see in A Raisin in the Sun connections between the play and the Langston Hughes poem, A Dream Deferred. So the scene opens up with a description of Ruth. Ruth is about 30. She was a pretty girl. Life has been little that she expected, and she will be known among her people soon as a settled woman. So what does all this mean? This means that Ruth, who is Walter's wife, there may have been an expectation that either she had or that people around her had, that since she was young and since she was beautiful, that opportunities would open up for her and that the world would be, if not an easy, maybe her life wouldn't be easy, but her life would be bigger than where she started off. That seems to not be the case. It's not what she had hoped for, whatever that is. It doesn't go into detail, but whatever it is, whatever dream she had, remember, a dream deferred, whatever dreams she had, have wilted. It's nothing but disappointment. Pretty soon she will be known as a settled woman. What does it mean to be settled? It means that not so much that she has accepted her station in life, but more so that she sees no way forward. So in the poem, what happens to her dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Ruth seems to be more of the dried up like a raisin in the sun type. There's no way forward. She is where she is. It is what it is. She's going to make the best of what she has. She is disappointed. She's not happy about it. If things could change, she would change them. But from her perspective, she can't. And so she is settling in where she is. To maybe deepen this idea a little bit, we have this concept of tenement housing. And this is a quick line that if you were reading on your own, maybe you would miss. But Travis is Ruth's son, Ruth and Walter's son. And the discussion here, clues us into the idea that there is one bathroom that is being shared, not just by the apartment where they live, but by several apartments. And so she's yelling at her husband saying, "You have to hurry up. You better get in there. Travis, your son, is going to be finished in the bathroom soon." And once Travis is finished in the bathroom, Mr. Johnson, who lives in a separate apartment, he's going to be right there, waiting for the bathroom. And so now you're going to have to wait for him. Then you're going to be late for work. So it sets the scene and gives us the idea that, as Ruth was described as disappointed, she's living a life where not only does her entire family have to share a single bathroom, which is difficult enough, but she has to share a bathroom with multiple families, which, can't be easy. So that was tenement housing. We sort of went over that a little bit when we did the gallery walk, but that's what that is. These are more images of what tenement housing looked like. All right. So we have this idea of a dream deferred and how it dries up. Walter and Ruth are husband and wife. So if we skip down to halfway down the slide where it says, Ruth says, "What kind of eggs do you want?" And Walter says, "Not scrambled." And then immediately the stage directions are Ruth starts to scramble the eggs. So what's the idea behind this? The idea behind this, and this is the first rule of ELA, everything is figurative until proven otherwise. The eggs symbolize something bigger than just eggs. Walter is asking the universe for anything other than scrambled eggs. I want my eggs over easy, sunny side up, poached, hard boiled. I don't care anything, just not scrambled. And what does the world give him? The world answers with scrambled eggs. Ruth, on the other hand, she's settled into scrambled eggs. Possibly she doesn't want scrambled eggs either, but it doesn't matter. It's what's for it's what's for breakfast. So if we go back to the top of the slide, Walter says, "Check coming today." Ruth says, "I don't want to hear it." So what is this? We don't know yet, but spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you there is a check coming in that is a life insurance policy for Walter's father. Walter's father passed away. That check is not going to Walter. That check is going to Walter's mother. Everyone, the whole family, and we'll see this as the scene goes on, is on edge about this check coming in because it's a significant amount of money. It's $10,000 in 1950s, which amounts to about $100,000 today. Walter has plans for that money. Everyone has plans for that money, and the plans are different. Ruth, I don't want to hear about it. Ruth, maximum indifference, did they? Ruth, we're just eating scrambled eggs. Ruth, what happens to a dream deferred? It dries up like a raisin in the sun. Walter is excited for this check. Walter, he wants something besides scrambled eggs. Walter, they set off another bomb yesterday. So this is a bit of history. In Chicago in the 1950s, black people were moving into Chicago, and what was happening was groups of white people who didn't want them there were setting off literal bombs and blowing up houses. Now, home ownership is one of the most direct routes towards generational wealth. It's maybe the quickest, most efficient way to build equity, to build wealth, especially over multiple generations, because you have to pay rent anyway. And so if you're able to secure a mortgage and you're able to pay into a house, and then you're able to leave that house to your children, you can then give your children a heads up and your grandchildren sort of a leg up economically. So when black people are moving into Chicago or anywhere in the US, but in this case, Chicago, and they're trying to buy houses, and we'll see later they're denied loans, but even if they get loans, you have groups of white people setting off bombs and destroying chances, destroying opportunities for economic freedom, economic mobility, generational wealth, literally blowing them up with bombs, sometimes setting them on fire, etc. So the last line of the poem, a dream deferred. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it explode? Walter, his literal dreams are, in a sense, blowing up because he we'll see later what he wants to do with the money. But one of the things he wants to do is to buy a business. Well, are they going to blow up his store? Are they going to set fire to his store? Is Walter himself, if he's not able to access that money, if he's not able to access his dreams, if he's not able to provide a future for his family, is he going to explode? What does it mean when a human being explodes? Not literally, not in war or something like that, but what happens when they reach the end of their rope? Sometimes what happens is what happens to Ruth. It dries up like a raisin in the sun. Sometimes what happens is what seems to be happening to Walter. He still sees a world where he can have something other than scrambled eggs. His wife doesn't. What happens if he sees that world and he believes in that world and he never gets that world, but he still has all that energy pent up? He still has all that vision. He still has all those hopes. He has a son. He has Travis, right? And he has to think about his son's future. What happens when he's not able to provide a future for his son? What happens to him? What does it mean for him to explode? Here's another scene, the same scene, but another interaction where Travis, his son, is well. Walter comes in and Travis tells his dad, "Mom won't give me the 50 cents." And Ruth says, "Oh, we don't have it." And Walter loses his mind a little, temporarily, because he's like, "Why would you tell my son that we don't have 50 cents? 50 cents being approximately $5 in today's money. Why would you tell our son that we don't have $5? You know what? Forget it. Here, take it." And he pulls it out of his pocket. He's like, "Boy, I have $5," and he basically just like, "Here, son, whenever you need money, we have money. We can always get money. It don't even." He doesn't want what we have here is a conflict between Ruth and Walter, and the conflict really comes down to Ruth being more pragmatic. Pragmatic means practical. It means down to earth, real life. And Walter being more of a visionary and a dreamer, and believing that they can have more than what they have, still believing in that dream. And when Ruth tells their son that we don't have $5, right? We don't have 50 cents. What she's basically saying out loud is that that dream is not reality now and will not be a reality. It is a knife in Walter's heart. So Walter, of of course, is going to puff out his chest, and he's going to give the money to his son while looking at his wife sort of antagonistically, right? And so if we look down here, that was pages 30 to 31. I skipped forward a bit. Walter and his wife and his Walter's sister, we'll see later, get into an argument where Walter storms out and slams the door, and then comes back in. And what does he say? Takes his hat off, fumbles with his cap, starts to speak, clears his throat, looks anywhere but at Ruth. Right? He can't look his wife in the eyes. And he says, "What? I need some money for car fare." He doesn't have any money. He gave his last 50 cents to his kid. He can't get to work. And Ruth smiles at him, but she loves her husband. She's not mocking him. It says tenderly here, 50 cents? Is that what you need? And I think that's just so funny, because it very much, I feel for Walter, because he has a vision, and he wants to have a future, and he wants to provide for his family, but he's stumbling about a bit, and in his, I guess, in his emotional state, he doesn't have his feet firmly on the ground. He's handing the last bit of money over to his son so that his son can go on I think it was a field trip. And Ruth she has her feet planted firmly in the ground. She might be more pessimistic. She might be, maybe her way of being is not the most ideal for progress, right? Maybe if Walter believes in his dream, he will achieve his dream someday. And maybe if Ruth was too practical, then they never will achieve their dream. But Ruth also is like, okay, at the end of the day, the math is the math. You have the 50 cents or not. No, you don't have. You gave it to your son. You don't have it. So I think this little scene with the 50 cents, what it really shows us is the conflict between Ruth and Walter, husband and wife, which is to say that Walter, if we go to a dream deferred, Walter is that type who's going. He's not done yet. He's not dried up yet. He's not finished with his. He's about to explode, and maybe he will explode. But for now, he still believes. And Ruth, she's raising the sun. She's more. She says, "Listen, the sun is out and it's hot and the raisins dried up and we don't have the 50 cents." And that's what it is. All right. So here we have more with the So if we look at what's highlighted in blue first, there's a bunch of numbers here. I just want you to get a real sense of how much money we're talking about. So he wants to open Walter's dream, or his dream for his family, his dream for himself, is to open a liquor store. And so if you get a sense of these numbers, you can basically multiply it by 10 and get a sense of how much money we're talking about. So the liquor store costs $75,000. That means $750,000. They need to put down about $300,000, right? $30,000 in 1950 is about $300,000 today. So that's $100,000 each. And then there's a couple hundred, you got, a couple thousand, right? A couple hundred in 50s money, a couple thousand in today's money that you have to pay in bribes, basically. So we're talking about, if it's him and two of his friends, his friend Bobo and another friend, that's $10,000 or $100,000 each. How much is the life insurance money? $10,000, right? Or $100,000 in today's money. It's a significant amount of money. $100,000, guys, if you don't know, it's not, I wouldn't call it life-changing. It's definitely life-changing money. I wouldn't call it life-altering money. In other words, if someone dropped $100,000 in your lap today, it would certainly change your life, and it's certainly a significant amount of money, but it's not enough money to do everything. It's not enough money to buy a house and buy a business and pay for college tuition. It's not enough to do everything. It's enough to do maybe one of those things, maybe two of those things if you scale down a bit. All right. So we're talking, in other words, just to get your head around the math of this, we're talking about quite a bit of money, but not enough money to do everything for everyone. All right. So Ruth, of course, as we said before, she's practical, pragmatic. She's got her feet on the ground. She says, Bobo, your friend Bobo. Already, I wish, as we did in our gallery walk, we know that Lorraine Hansberry died relatively young. I'm not sure if she's ever discussed this. I haven't seen it. If she was alive and I could ask her one question, I would ask her if she named Bobo, if she named Bobo that on purpose, because and maybe this is unfair to the people named Bobo, but the first thought I have, especially when Ruth says it the way she says it, is that this guy is not responsible and not someone you should be going into business with, right? Bobo sounds like a clown. So Ruth says, your idiot friend. No, a graft, that's a bribe. We're not doing that. And Walter becomes furious. Women don't understand about the world. Of course, you have to bribe. And Ruth says, leave me alone. Eat your eggs. They're going to be cold. So when we see this, eat your eggs, they're going to be cold, what she's really saying, what that signifies, the eggs are the dreams and they're scrambled, the one thing he didn't want, and he needs to just eat his eggs and stop talking about the liquor store that he's going to buy with Bobo. Stop talking about the $100,000 that is your mother's $100,000, not yours, that has to go around and pay for several things, not just what you want. And also, you're going into business with someone named Bobo. All right, so stop it. Eat your eggs before they get cold. Be happy with what you have, or satisfied with what you have. Or if not happy and satisfied, then just take what you have. Just take it. Right? It's what's here. It's what's for breakfast. Stop wishing that you had sunny side up eggs. You have scrambled eggs. That's what you have. Now, Walter is also, now to be fair, because I think I relate with Walter. I appreciate where Walter's coming from. I want to be fair to Ruth. When Walter says, see there, that just goes to show you what women understand about the world. He's being unfair to his wife. He's being sexist, first of all. He's also, part of the definition of sexist is generalizing. He's generalizing to what all women understand. But even if you take that out, even if you take the sort of that dimension, take the word women out of it, he's not giving her perspective its due, right? Her perspective is completely valid. They don't have the money. Uh, they they don't have experience with liquor stores. It's not their $10,000 or $100,000, right? None of that. Like he's not. He has blinders on. He's not seeing the full picture. He's seeing what he wants. And I like to give him the benefit of the doubt and think that he wants that for the good of his family. But regardless of the fact, if it's for him himself, or if it's for his family, or if it's for the future, he's still not taking anyone else's um, thoughts, feelings, or rights, really, because it's, again, not his money, anyone else's perspective into account. Oh, you just think that because that's what women understand about the world. Okay, well, there's also reality, Walter, and so you have to think about that. All right, Benitha. Benitha is Walter's sister. Benitha is younger than everyone. She's 20 years old. She's a college student. And Benitha comes in and she says exactly what I was just saying. That money belongs to Mama, Walter, and it's for her to decide how she wants to use it, which is perfectly fair. Walter doesn't like that, though, and I don't. As much as I don't think Walter is being fair in how he's exploding. What happens to a dream deferred, it explodes. How he's exploding on everyone. I don't think he's being completely fair. I also don't think he's completely wrong, because they are taking care of Benitha as she goes to school. Um, it does seem as though, at least, and we'll find out later in the play, but at this point, it does seem as though there's an expectation that Mama is going to use part of that money for Benitha's schooling. Benitha says, well, I never ask anyone to do anything for me. And Walter says, no, you didn't ask, but you also have accepted it with no questioning, didn't you? You never said, no, I'll make that money myself. No, I'll contribute in this way or that way. No, you just accepted it, and you never questioned it. And you never considered anyone else what they wanted in the world. So Walter counters with this idea. Um, and you know, you can form your own judgment. I don't think either of them are being 100% fair to each other, but that's what it is. Benitha, again, she's in college. There is an expectation that at least some of this money, some of this life insurance money that's going to Mama, is going to go to Benitha's college. Benitha sort of hides behind this. Well, I never asked her. And Walter said, well, you never turned it down either. So Benitha has this air about her, and more on naming with Lorraine Hansberry. If there was a second question, I would ask her. Well, this one I think is actually documented. Benitha has the word beneath right in it. She does she is more educated than the rest of the family. She does tend to feel as though others are beneath her. And so she's talking about one of her suitors, one of her boyfriends. She has two boyfriends, or two, maybe it's not fair to call them boyfriends, two boys that she's considering. And one of them is named George, and George is rich. But George is, according to Benitha at least, is so shallow. I could never really be serious about George. He's so shallow. And then Ruth is shallow. What do you mean? He's rich. Again, this is Ruth being pragmatic. He has money, marrying to money. You won't have to worry about, at least you won't have to worry about the money. There's, other problems in the world you'll be able to deal with maybe a little bit easier if, money might soften some of the other problems. And Benitha said, well, I could never marry someone just for money, but you would never understand that. Anyone that married my brother couldn't possibly understand. So Benitha has this real attitude of, oh, so none of you really could possibly understand me and what I need in this world, because all of you are beneath me in a way. But then Benitha gets a little bit in front of her skis. Benitha gets, maybe she takes an angle that she ought not to take. And this is where she says that she's just so in front of her mother. I'm just so tired of hearing about God all the time. What does God have to do with anything? And Mama says, you're about to get your fresh little jaw slapped. Benita said, why can't I say what I want to around here? Everyone else does. God is just an idea, and that's all it is. And it's just one idea I don't accept. No big deal. And Mama thinks that is a big deal. And so Mama walks right up to Benita and slaps her across the face. So, so Mama's slapping this 20-year-old woman across the face, her daughter. It shows, I think, two things. At least two things. The first thing is that there is a generational difference between Benita and Mama. So Benita is obviously much younger. Benita is more educated. There is a sort of transitional time here in American history, or with African Americans specifically, where, and we'll see this word assimilationist later, when more Black people are going to college, more Black people are learning about mainstream culture, and part of that is being an atheism. And Mama doesn't understand this. She doesn't. It offends her. She is frightened for her children. God is the central thing in Mama's life. Mama is much more traditional. Benita is much more progressive. She's much more new. She's much more into some of the ideas that probably she's learning in college and around other people who are going to college. So Benita comes, she not only does she have these ideas, but she approaches it in a condescending way, and she gets slapped across the face for it.